The glass doors of Anderson Global shattered behind me as I stormed out into the rainy Manhattan evening. Security guards watched nervously. They'd never seen the CEO's daughter escorted out before. But then again, I'd never publicly challenged my father's leadership in front of the board until today. "Alexandra." My mother's voice carried across the lobby. "Please just apologize to your father. He'll forgive you." I kept walking, my heels clicking against the marble floor, raindrops mixing with angry tears. Dad's words still rang in my ears. "You'll never succeed in business. You're too emotional, too radical, too feminine." The board meeting had started normally enough. As head of innovation, I'd prepared a comprehensive presentation about modernizing our consulting approach. Anderson Global was losing younger clients to more tech-savvy firms, and our outdated methods were becoming a liability. "We need to evolve," I'd argued, showing slides of declining revenue. "The market is changing. If we don't adapt, we'll lose everything." Dad had listened with his typical stern expression, the one that had intimidated employees for 30 years. Then he'd laughed, actually laughed, in front of the entire board. "This is why women shouldn't run companies," he declared. "Always wanting to change things that work perfectly fine." That's when I'd lost it. Years of suppressed frustration exploded as I detailed every failing strategy, every lost opportunity, every potential client who'd chosen our competitors because we were too traditional. "You're not just wrong, Dad," I'd concluded. "You're becoming obsolete." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face had turned purple with rage. "Get out," he'd whispered. Then louder, "Get out. You're banned from this building. Forever." Now, standing in the rain, I watched the building that should have been my future fade into the gray evening. My phone buzzed. Probably Mom again, trying to negotiate peace like she always did. Instead, it was a message that would change everything. "Ms. Anderson, this is James Chin from Tech Fusion. Heard about your presentation today. Would love to discuss your ideas over coffee." Tech Fusion. Anderson Global's biggest client. The one Dad had personally handled for 15 years. I smiled through my tears, already formulating a plan. Dad wanted traditional? Fine. I'd show him what innovation could really do. The next morning, I withdrew my trust fund, every penny, before Dad could freeze it. By afternoon, I'd signed a lease on a small office in Brooklyn, far from Anderson Global's prestigious Manhattan address. Nova Consulting, I decided, watching the sign painter work on my door. Where tradition meets tomorrow. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Word of my dramatic exit had spread through New York's business circles. Every call followed the same pattern. "Heard what happened. Always thought your father was stuck in the past, interested in your ideas." I hired 4 key people that first week. All brilliant minds Dad had rejected for being too unconventional. Sarah Chin, a tech prodigy who'd tried to sell Anderson Global on AI-driven analytics. Marcus Rodriguez, whose digital transformation strategies Dad had dismissed as trendy nonsense. Aisha Patel, a sustainability expert Dad said was too focused on feel-good initiatives. Together in our Brooklyn office, surrounded by whiteboard walls and second-hand furniture, we began building something new. Every decision was a deliberate contrast to Anderson Global's stuffy traditions. No dress code, flexible hours, remote work options, revenue sharing. "They're calling you the consulting rebel on LinkedIn," Sarah reported 2 weeks in, showing me the trending posts. "Your father's trying to discredit you, but it's backfiring. We've received 15 inquiries from major companies today alone." I was reviewing potential client proposals when James Chin from Tech Fusion walked in, unannounced. He looked around our modest office, taking in the exposed brick walls and communal workspaces. "Quite different from your father's mahogany palace," he observed. "That's the point," I replied, offering him coffee in a Nova Consulting mug. "We're building the future, not preserving the past." He nodded, pulling out a thick folder. "I've been reviewing your proposals from Anderson Global. The ones your father rejected. The AI integration strategy. The sustainability framework. The digital transformation roadmap." He paused. "We want all of it." My heart stopped. "All of it?" "Anderson Global has been our consultant for 15 years, he continued. "But they've stopped innovating. Stopped listening. We need a partner who understands where business is going, not just where it's been." He smiled. When can you start? That evening, I called an emergency team meeting. We ordered pizza, spread documents across the floor, and worked through the night developing our strategy for Tech Fusion. My phone buzzed at midnight. Mom calling again. This time I answered. Please come home, she begged. Your father's worried sick. He'll give you your job back, just apologize. Actually, Mom, I said, watching my team collaborate on our presentation, I need you to give Dad a message. Tell him to check his email tomorrow morning. Tech Fusion has something to tell him. I hung up before she could respond, turning back to my team. We had work to do and the night was young. 6 months later, Dad would know exactly how wrong he'd been about my business acumen. But for now, in our Brooklyn office with takeout containers and endless coffee, revolution was brewing. And I was just getting started. The next 6 months passed in a blur of sleepless nights, endless client meetings, and explosive growth. Nova Consulting's reputation spread through the business world like wildfire. The rebel firm that was redefining corporate consulting. Our Tech Fusion success became a case study in industry magazines. How a startup disrupted legacy consulting, read the Harvard Business Review headline. The Wall Street Journal followed with Nova's rise, when innovation beats tradition. I sat in my office, no longer in Brooklyn, but a full floor in a sleek downtown building, reviewing our latest quarterly reports. We'd grown from 4 employees to 40, with satellite offices opening in San Francisco and London. Alexandra. Sarah knocked on my door, tablet in hand. You need to see this. She pulled up Anderson Global's latest financial statement. Their stock had dropped 30% since losing Tech Fusion. More importantly, their client retention rate was plummeting. Goldman Sachs is considering switching to us, Sarah continued. So is Microsoft. And Tesla just called. They want a meeting next week. I leaned back in my chair, remembering Dad's words, "You'll never succeed in business." The memory still stung, but now it fueled me rather than hurt me. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Your father's calling an emergency board meeting. Spat Alex. Really bad. Before I could respond, Marcus burst in. Boss, you won't believe who's in reception. I followed him out to find James Chin from Tech Fusion standing there, but he wasn't alone. With him were CEOs from 3 other major corporations, all longtime Anderson Global clients. We've been watching Nova's work with Tech Fusion, one CEO said. Your digital transformation strategy increased their efficiency by 200%. Another stepped forward. Anderson Global keeps telling us to stick with proven methods. Meanwhile, our competitors are evolving. We need what you're offering. James smiled. I told them how you predicted the AI integration challenges before they happened. How your team worked weekends to ensure a smooth transition. How you're always 3 steps ahead. My office phone rang, our reception desk. Ms. Anderson? Your mother's here. Mom walked in moments later, looking elegant but distressed in her designer suit. She stopped short at seeing the CEOs gathered in our office. Alexandra, she said quietly. Your father. The board. They're voting on whether to step down. Anderson Global is losing clients every week. The shareholders are panicking. I felt no joy at this news, only a complex mix of vindication and sadness. Why are you here, Mom? She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit from my childhood. They want to discuss a merger. Nova Consulting acquiring Anderson Global. The room fell silent. Even our potential new clients seemed to hold their breath. A merger. I laughed without humor. Dad banned me from the building, remember? Said I'd never succeed in business. Now he wants to merge. The board is overruling him, Mom replied. They've seen your success. Your father, he was wrong, Alex. We all were. Sarah cleared her throat. Our valuation is 3 times Anderson Global's current market cap. We'd be the dominant partner. I walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. 6 months ago, I'd stood in the rain watching my future crumble. Now I own that future. Tell the board I'll be there in an hour, I told Mom. But this won't be a merger of equals. Nova leads or no deal. After she left, James Chin approached me. You know, your father once told me women were too emotional for business. He gestured around at our thriving office. Looks like emotion, passion, is exactly what business needed. I gathered my team in the conference room. Prepare the acquisition documents. And call the London and San Francisco offices. I want everyone on video conference in 20 minutes. Going to war? Marcus asked with a knowing smile. No, I replied, straightening my jacket. Going home. But this time on my terms. The next hour would change everything, again. But first I had a stop to make. I took a car to our old Brooklyn office. The small space where Nova began was now our innovation lab, where we tested new ideas away from corporate pressure. On the wall hung our first client contract, Tech Fusion. Below it, in a simple frame, was the nameplate from my Anderson Global office. I'd kept it as a reminder of where I came from and why I had to leave. My phone buzzed with messages from the team. Acquisition documents ready. London and SF standing by. Press release drafted. Social media strategy prepared. I took one last look around the Brooklyn office, remembering those first desperate, exciting days. Then I headed toward Anderson Global, where everything had ended 6 months ago. And where everything would begin again. The Anderson Global lobby fell silent as I walked in, my Nova Consulting executive team behind me. No security guards stopped us this time. Instead, they nodded respectfully. The same marble floors that had echoed my angry exit now carried the sound of my triumphant return. The board is waiting in the main conference room, the receptionist said, her eyes wide. Your father. He's in his office. I glanced at the executive floor directory, where my name had been hastily removed 6 months ago. Soon every name on that board would change. Sarah, Marcus, begin the systems audit. Aisha, start interviewing department heads. I want a full assessment by tomorrow morning. My team dispersed efficiently, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Instead of heading to the boardroom, I took the elevator to the top floor, to Dad's office. The corner suite where he'd ruled his empire for 3 decades. Where he told me I'd never succeed. He was standing at the window looking older than I remembered. I always loved this view, he said without turning around. 30 years I built this company. 30 years of tradition, reputation, excellence. And in 6 months I built something better, I replied, closing the door behind me. He finally turned, his face a complex mix of emotions. How did you do it? How did you know what clients wanted before they did? As I listened, Dad. While you were protecting tradition, I was watching the future unfold. While you were saying no to innovation, I was saying yes to change. He sank into his chair, my chair soon. The board wants me to step down. 30 years and they want me to just disappear. You won't disappear, I said, softer now. Nova can use your experience, your connections. But as an advisor, not a ruler. The world's changed, Dad. Either we change with it or we become obsolete. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom looking nervous. The board is getting impatient. The main conference room was packed. Board members, shareholders, executives, all waiting to witness the changing of the guard. Our lawyers distributed the acquisition documents as I took my place at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, let's talk about the future. For the next 2 hours, I outlined Nova's vision for the combined companies. AI-driven analytics, sustainable business practices, digital transformation, everything Dad had rejected now becoming reality. Anderson Global's name and legacy will be respected, I assured them, but Nova's principles will guide us forward. Any questions? The room erupted with hands raising, voices overlapping. But one quiet voice cut through the chaos, Dad's. I have a question, he said, standing slowly. Why didn't you tell me? All those years, why didn't you make me understand? I tried, Dad. Every presentation, every proposal, every innovation I suggested, I was trying to tell you. You just couldn't hear me over the sound of tradition. The voting was unanimous. By sunset, Nova Consulting had acquired Anderson Global. The press release went out immediately. Nova leads historic merger, creates next-generation consulting powerhouse. As the boardroom emptied, Mom hugged me tightly. Your father, he's proud of you, you know. He just doesn't know how to say it. I watched Dad gathering his things from his office, 30 years of memories boxed up in hours. Tomorrow that would be my office. My view. My legacy. Ms. Anderson? Sarah appeared with our latest client report. Goldman Sachs just signed. So did Microsoft. We're now the largest consulting firm on the East Coast. I nodded, but my attention was on Dad as he walked toward the elevator, shoulders slightly bent. Sarah, hold my calls. There's something I need to do. I caught up with him at the lobby. Dad, wait. He turned, his eyes tired but curious. Join me for dinner? There's this great little place in Brooklyn, where Nova began. I'd like to show you what the future looks like. For a moment he hesitated. Then slowly he smiled. I suppose it's time I learned. As we walked out together, the setting sun painted Manhattan in shades of gold. Through the windows I could see our new company logo being installed. Nova's rising star merged with Anderson's traditional shield. My phone buzzed one last time. Forbes wants an interview. The daughter who disrupted an empire. Available tomorrow. I declined the call. Tonight wasn't about empires or disruption. It was about a father learning to see his daughter clearly for the first time. About tradition learning to dance with innovation. About the future embracing the past even while transforming it. You know, Dad said as we hailed a taxi, I was wrong about one thing. Just one. I teased. He laughed. A real laugh, not the dismissive one I'd heard 6 months ago. You didn't just succeed in business. You redefined it. The taxi headed toward Brooklyn, toward the small office where everything began. Behind us, our merged companies stood ready for tomorrow's challenges. Ahead, a father-daughter dinner 6 months overdue. Sometimes I realized the greatest success isn't in proving others wrong. It's in showing them a better way to be right. 1 year later, the Wall Street Journal's headline said it all. Nova-Anderson partnership revolutionizes industry. How a father-daughter dynamic transformed consulting. I stood in my office, formerly Dad's, reviewing our latest innovation report. Below my window, construction crews were expanding our headquarters to accommodate our growing team. Dad knocked on my door, tablet in hand. Ready for the TED Talk prep? They want us both to speak about transformative leadership. Since the merger, we'd found an unexpected rhythm. His experience tempered my innovation. My vision energized his expertise. Weekly father-daughter dinners in Brooklyn had become a tradition, where we brainstormed ideas over pizza in Nova's original office. You know, he said, settling into a chair, banning you was the best mistake I ever made. I smiled, remembering that rainy night. Sometimes being lost is the only way to find a better path. Together we headed to the conference room where our merged team waited. The future stretched bright before us. Not just as business leaders, but as family finally understanding each other. Success, after all, has many definitions. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in the battle won, but in the bridges built after the war.
The text came at midnight. Just signed the papers to sell Chen Manufacturing. $40 million. Not bad for a company our old man built from scraps. Don't worry, little sister. I'll send you a Christmas card for my new beach house. I stared at Michael's message, my hands steady as I took a screenshot and added it to my growing collection of evidence. My brother always did love to gloat. My name is Julia Chen, and I was about to teach my brother a lesson about the difference between inheritance and earned success. The irony was, if he bothered to attend any board meetings in the past year, instead of sailing around the Mediterranean on Dad's old yacht, he might have noticed what I'd been building. But Michael had always been like that, showing up only when it was time to take credit or collect profits. I switched to my email, sending a quick message to our company's CFO. It's time, put phase 1 into action. The response came immediately, already done. He won't know what hit him. 12 hours later, I sat in my office at Chen Manufacturing, watching the morning light filter through floor-to-ceiling windows. This building, these machines humming in the background, the hundreds of employees arriving for their morning shift. It was all part of our parents' legacy. A legacy Michael was trying to sell to the highest bidder. Mom and Dad had built this company from nothing after immigrating from China in the 1980s. They started in a tiny garage, Dad handling the engineering while Mom managed the books. By the time they died in a car accident last year, Chen Manufacturing was supplying precision parts to major automotive companies across 3 continents. My phone buzzed. A call from Lisa, my best friend since college and now our head of legal. Julia, you need to see this. Michael just sent the preliminary sales agreement to the board. The numbers, they're not what he thinks they are. I smiled, opening my laptop, send it over. The document appeared in my inbox moments later. There it was, in black and white. Michael's grandiose plan to sell our family's company to global industries. a corporate giant known for buying family businesses and stripping them for parts. What my brother hadn't realized was that over the past year, while he was busy spending company money on luxury cars and younger girlfriends, I've been quietly restructuring everything. Each board meeting he skipped, each document he signed without reading, brought me one step closer to protecting what our parents had built. "Did you see page 17? Lisa asked, still on the line. "The shared distribution clause? Yes, he still thinks he controls 51% of the company because he's the eldest son." Lisa's laugh was sharp. "Should we tell him about the trust conversion?" "Not yet. Let him figure it out when he tries to close the deal." After hanging up, I walked through the factory floor, greeting employees by name. Unlike Michael, who couldn't tell a laugh from a drill press, I'd spent every summer here since I was 16, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. Dad used to say, success isn't inherited, it's earned. Michael never understood that. He thought being the firstborn son entitled him to everything: the company, the respect, the legacy. He'd never bothered to learn the business, assuming it would simply fall into his lap. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Michael. "Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Try not to embarrass yourself when I announce the sale." I typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." That evening, I met with key members of our management team at my house, the same house where Mom and Dad had hosted countless company celebrations, where they'd taught me the value of treating employees like family. "Everything's in place," reported Tom, our operations manager. "The audit records, the trust documents, everything." "And the employees?" I asked. Sarah from HR smiled. "They're ready. Every single one of them signed the statement." I looked around the room at these people who'd worked alongside my parents for decades, who'd watched Michael's increasingly erratic behavior over the past year with growing concern. "Tomorrow's going to be difficult," I said. "Are you all sure about this?" Tom spoke first, his voice firm. "Your parents didn't build this company to have it torn apart by global industries. We're with you." The next morning, I arrived early at the office, watching the sunrise paint the Chen manufacturing sign in shades of gold. Mom had designed that sign herself, incorporating elements that symbolized both our Chinese heritage and American dreams. At 8:45, Michael strutted into the building, flanked by representatives from global industries. He'd gotten his hair cut, bought a new suit, playing the role of successful businessman for his potential buyers. "Julie," he called out, using the nickname he knew I hated. "Ready to watch Big Brother make history?" I met his smug smile with a calm one of my own. Absolutely. The boardroom filled quickly, company executives, legal representatives, and the global industries team all taking their seats. Michael stood at the head of the table, practically bouncing with self-importance. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "today marks a new chapter for Chen Manufacturing. I'm pleased to announce that Global Industries has agreed to purchase our company for $40 million. He paused, clearly expecting applause. None came. "The paperwork is ready," he continued, slightly flustered. "As majority shareholder and CEO, I'm sorry," I interrupted, standing up. "But there seems to be some confusion about that." Michael's smile flickered. "About what?" "Your position. You're not the CEO, Michael. You haven't been for 6 months." The room went silent as I pulled out a folder and began distributing documents. "What are you talking about?" Michael demanded, his face reddening. "Of course I'm the CEO. Dad left me in charge." "Dad left you as interim CEO," I corrected, "subject to board approval and contingent on your active participation in company management. Would you like to know how many board meetings you've attended in the past year?" The global industries representatives were flipping through the documents I handed out, their expressions growing increasingly concerned. "These attendance records," one of them said, "show Mr. Chen has only been present for 2 out of 24 mandatory meetings." Michael waved his hand dismissively. "That's just paperwork. I own 51% of this company. I can sell it if I want to." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I nodded to Lisa, who stood up. "Actually," she said, "according to the trust conversion executed by your parents before their death, your shares were contingent on meeting certain management participation requirements. Requirements you failed to meet." She turned to the global industries team. "I'm afraid Mr. Chen no longer has the authority to negotiate this sale." Michael's face went from red to purple. "You're lying." This is impossible. I pulled out one final document, the trust agreement our parents had signed 2 months before their accident, after watching Michael's increasingly irresponsible behavior. They knew Michael. They knew you'd try something like this. That's why they put safeguards in place. The global industry's representatives were already packing up their briefcases, making polite but hasty excuses. This isn't over, Michael snarled, pointing at me. You think you can steal my company? No, Michael. I think I can save our parents' company. There's a difference. As security escorted him from the building, I sat down in our father's old chair, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. Phase 1 was complete, but the real work was just beginning. My phone buzzed, a message from Lisa. Ready for Phase 2? I looked out at the factory floor where employees were gathering, waiting to hear what would happen next. They trusted me, supported my plan, believed in my vision for the company's future. Yes, I replied. It's time to show everyone what Chen Manufacturing can really do. The media coverage started the next day. Family drama at Chen Manufacturing. CEO ousted in failed sale attempt read the headlines. My phone was flooded with calls from reporters, all wanting to know how the quiet younger sister had outmaneuvered her flashy brother. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the message that had just arrived from Michael's lawyer. Our client contests the validity of the trust conversion. Prepare for legal action. I forwarded it to Lisa, who responded immediately, let him try. Your parents made everything ironclad. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. While Michael waged his legal battle, I concentrated on strengthening the company. Every morning, I arrived before sunrise, just like Dad used to do. Every evening, I was the last to leave, reviewing contracts, meeting with team leaders, learning everything I could about where we could improve. You don't have to do everything yourself, Tom said one night, finding me still at my desk at 9 p.m. That's what got Michael in trouble, thinking he had to be the one in control of everything. I looked up from the production reports I was reviewing. I'm not trying to control everything. I'm trying to understand everything. There's a difference. And there was. Unlike Michael, who saw the company as his personal ATM, I saw it as a living thing. Thousands of moving parts that had to work together. Every decision affected real people with real families. A month after the failed sale, I called an all-hands meeting in the main factory floor. Hundreds of employees gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Many of you have worked here for decades, I began. You knew my parents, helped them build this company from nothing. When they died, my brother saw that legacy as his birthright. But I see it differently. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation, our new company structure. Starting today, Chen Manufacturing is becoming an employee-owned company. Every full-time employee will receive shares, with additional shares available based on years of service. The room erupted in murmurs. This was what I'd been working on for the past year, transforming the company into something that couldn't be sold out from under the people who'd helped build it. My parents believed in building things that last, I continued. Not just machines, but relationships, community, future. That's what we're going to do together. The applause was deafening. In the back of the room, I saw older employees wiping away tears. They'd known my parents, understood exactly what this meant. Later that afternoon, Lisa rushed into my office. Michael's lawyer just filed an emergency injunction trying to stop the employee ownership transition. They're requesting a hearing next week. I nodded, already prepared for this. Good. Time to show the judge exactly why we did this. The hearing was set for Tuesday morning. I arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in one of Mom's old suits that I had tailored. Michael showed up late, looking disheveled, with an expensive lawyer at his side. This is theft, he declared as soon as the judge asked him to explain his position. My sister has stolen my birthright through legal trickery. I sat quietly as his lawyer presented their case, claiming the trust conversion was invalid, that our parents couldn't have intended to disinherit their son. When it was our turn, Lisa stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of why the trust conversion was not only valid but necessary. For the next hour, we showed the judge everything. Michael's absences from board meetings, his misuse of company funds, the trail of poor decisions that had nearly bankrupted us twice. But the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. We'd like to play a video, Lisa announced, recorded by James and Margaret Chen 6 months before their deaths. Michael's head snapped up as our parents appeared on the courtroom screen. They were sitting in Dad's study, looking serious but determined. "If you're watching this," Dad began, "it means Michael has tried to sell the company. We knew this day might come. Our son has many qualities, but he never understood what we built here isn't just a business. It's a family." Mom spoke next, her voice gentle but firm. "Julia, if you're seeing this, it means you've done what we hoped. Protected not just the company, but the people who make it work. The trust conversion wasn't about punishing your brother. It was about preserving our real legacy." By the time the video ended, Michael had slumped in his chair, all his bluster gone. The judge took only 15 minutes to make his decision. "The trust conversion stands," he declared. "Furthermore, Mr. Chen's claims of theft are dismissed with prejudice." Outside the courthouse, Michael caught up to me. "You've ruined everything," he spat. "I could have made us rich." I turned to face him, really looking at my brother for the first time in months. "We were already rich, Michael. Not just in money, but in what Mom and Dad built. You just never saw it." "So that's it? I get nothing." "You get exactly what the trust stipulates, a living allowance, contingent on you seeking employment and counseling. The choice is yours." He stormed off, but I noticed his shoulders were slumped, defeated. For the first time, he looked less like the entitled heir and more like a lost son. Back at the factory, the transformation was already underway. Employee owners walked with new purpose, offering suggestions, taking initiative. We landed 3 major new contracts in the first month alone. 6 months later, I stood on the factory floor again, this time celebrating our most profitable quarter ever. The employee ownership program had energized everyone, leading to innovations and efficiencies we never imagined. "Your parents would be proud," Tom said, watching the celebrations. "They'd be proud of all of us," I replied. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I found an unexpected visitor waiting in the lobby. "Michael, I've been in therapy," he said without preamble, "trying to understand everything." I waited, letting him find the words. "I never saw it, what Mom and Dad were really building. I just saw the money, the status. But watching what you've done here," he gestured at the bustling factory beyond the windows. "I get it now. What do you want, Michael?" He pulled out a piece of paper, a job application. "I want to learn, really learn from the ground up. If you'll let me." I studied my brother's face, seeing something new there, humility, maybe even wisdom. "Start Monday," I said. 6 a.m. sharp. You'll work with Tom in operations, learning every machine, every process. No shortcuts." His smile was different now, smaller but more real. "Thank you, Julia." As I watched him leave, I thought about Mom and Dad, about legacy and learning, about the difference between inheriting something and earning it. The next morning, I arrived at my usual time, before sunrise. The factory was quiet, but not for long. Soon it would pulse with life, with purpose, with the dreams of hundreds of employee owners working to build something lasting. My phone buzzed, a message from Lisa. "Did you really hire Michael?" "Everyone deserves a chance to earn their place," I replied, "even him." And that was the real lesson, wasn't it? Success isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build, who you help along the way, and the legacy you choose to create. Dad used to say every machine in the factory had a story. Now I understood. We all have stories. The trick is making sure they're worth telling. The real estate agent's email arrived at 3 a.m. "Mrs. Walker, there seems to be some confusion. Your husband claims you've agreed to sell the house, but we need your signature to proceed with the closing." I stared at my phone in the darkness of our kitchen, our beautiful kitchen with its hand-painted tiles and herb garden window that I designed myself. Mark thought I was asleep upstairs, unaware of his late-night scheming, but I've been tracking his betrayal for months. My name is Rebecca Walker, and my husband of 15 years was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating me. The signs started appearing 6 months ago. Small things at first. Mark working later than usual, mysterious charges on our credit card, hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Then came the changes in his behavior. The man who once bragged about my cooking suddenly found fault with every meal. My choice of clothes became frumpy, my interests boring. I might have blamed it on a midlife crisis if I hadn't found the receipt. A $12,000 charge at Cartier, dated 3 days after he told me we needed to tighten our belts and cancel our anniversary trip. The receipt was for a bracelet, Definitely not for me. That discovery led me down a rabbit hole of investigation. Bank statements showing large cash withdrawals, hotel charges in cities where he supposedly had business meetings, and most recently, emails to real estate agents about selling our home, all from his private account that he didn't know I could access. "Becky," Mark's voice floated down from upstairs. "You coming back to bed?" "Just getting some water," I called back, keeping my voice steady. "Be right up." I closed my laptop quietly, my mind racing. This house wasn't just any property, it was my dream home, the one I'd spent 3 years renovating while working as an interior designer. Every room reflected my vision, my creativity, and now Mark was trying to sell it from under me to fund his affair with a woman young enough to be our daughter. But what he didn't know was that I'd been 2 steps ahead of him for months. The next morning, I watched Mark leave for work, briefcase in hand, kissing me goodbye like nothing was wrong. As soon as his car disappeared around the corner, I called my lawyer, Sarah. "He's making his move," I said as soon as she answered. "Got an email from the real estate agent last night." "Perfect," Sarah replied, and I could hear her shuffling papers. "Everything's in place on our end. Are you sure you want to wait? We could confront him now." I thought about the evidence I gathered, screenshots of his messages to his girlfriend Jessica, a 23-year-old yoga instructor. Records of the money he'd been siphoning from our accounts, the fake business trips that were actually romantic getaways. But timing was everything. "No," I said firmly. "Let him think he's winning. I want to see his face when he realizes what's really happening." After hanging up, I walked through our house, running my hand along the walls I carefully painted, remembering the countless hours spent making each room perfect. Mark had laughed at my attention to detail back then, calling me obsessive. Now I understood. He'd never appreciated any of it. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Lauren. "Just saw Mark at that new bistro downtown. He's not alone." I asked her to send a photo, even though I knew what I'd see. Sure enough, there he was, sitting across from Jessica, her bleached blonde hair catching the sunlight as she laughed at something he'd said. The Cartier bracelet glinted on her wrist. "Thanks," I texted back. "Keep me posted." That evening, Mark came home later than usual, reeking of expensive perfume and wine. He didn't notice how I'd rearranged my home office, moving my important documents to a secure location. He was too busy checking his phone, probably messaging Jessica. "Busy day?" I asked, serving the dinner I prepared, his favorite, pot roast with roasted potatoes. "Yeah, big client meeting," he muttered, barely looking up. "Listen, Becky, we need to talk about the house." I kept my expression neutral, waiting. "I've been thinking," he continued, pushing his food around his plate. "Maybe it's time for a change. This place is too big for us, and the market's good right now." "You want to sell?" I asked, making my voice small, uncertain. Exactly what he expected from me. He launched into his rehearsed speech about downsizing, investing in new opportunities, finding something more practical. I listened, nodding at all the right moments, while my mind raced ahead to what would happen next. "I've actually talked to a few agents," he admitted, watching my reaction carefully, just to get an idea of the market. I forced tears into my eyes, a trick I'd learned in my college theater days. "But this is our home. We've put so much work into it." He reached across the table, patting my hand condescendingly. "Sometimes we have to make hard decisions, honey. Trust me on this." I pulled away, rushing from the table like the emotional, irrational wife he thought I was. Once in our bedroom, I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. "He's making his pitch now. Time to move to phase 2. The next week passed in a blur of activity, all carefully hidden from Mark. While he thought I was at my design clients' homes, I was actually meeting with financial advisors, documenting his betrayal, and setting up my own security net. Lauren kept me updated on Mark's movements, lunch dates with Jessica, visits to high-end jewelry stores, a suspicious appointment at a luxury car dealership. He was spending money like water, probably promising Jessica the world. Then came the email I'd been waiting for. Mark had found a buyer for our house. A cash offer, well above market value. He forwarded me the details with a note. "This is a great opportunity, honey. We need to move fast." I showed the email to Sarah, who smiled grimly. "He really thinks he'll just sign everything over without checking the details?" He's never thought I was capable of understanding complex financial matters, I replied, thinking of all the times he dismissed my questions about our investments. That's about to change. That night, Mark was particularly attentive, bringing home my favorite wine and suggesting we eat on the patio. I knew what was coming: the hard sell, the manipulation, the carefully crafted arguments designed to make me agree to sell our home. The buyers need an answer by Friday, he said, refilling my wine glass. They're offering cash, Becky. We'd be foolish to pass this up. I took a sip of wine, studying his face in the fading light. The face I'd woken up to for 15 years now looked different to me. Harder, colder, with lies etched into every smile. You're right, I said softly. We would be foolish. His eyes lit up with triumph, not noticing the steel beneath my words. I'll have the papers drawn up tomorrow. We just need your signature, and… No, I cut him off, my voice firm. We would be foolish to pass up this opportunity to expose exactly what you've been doing. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, pulling up the folder of evidence I'd labeled Mark's secret life. Should we start with the Cartier bracelet you bought Jessica? Or maybe the hotel receipts? Oh, I know. Let's talk about the money you've been moving to your private account, thinking I wouldn't notice. He stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. You've been spying on me? No, Mark. I've been protecting myself. Did you really think I'd just stand by while you sold our home to fund your midlife crisis? The next few hours were chaos. Mark alternated between rage and pleading, threats and promises. But I stood firm, knowing I held all the cards. When he finally stormed out at midnight, slamming the door behind him, I sent one final text to Sarah. He knows. Time for the endgame. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls from Mark and a string of increasingly desperate texts. You're making a huge mistake. We can talk about this. Don't do anything stupid, Becky. The buyers won't wait forever. I smiled, making my morning coffee in the kitchen I'd fought so hard to design. Mark had always underestimated me, treating me like a decorative housewife whose only skill was making things look pretty. He'd forgotten that successful interior design required more than just an eye for color. It required business acumen, attention to detail, and most importantly, the ability to read people. My phone rang again. Mark's number. This time I answered. The buyers pulled out, he said without preamble. Thanks to your little tantrum, we just lost the best offer we'll ever get. No, Mark, I replied calmly. You lost the best thing you ever had. The house was just the last straw. He started to respond, but I cut him off. Check your email. I listened to his sharp intake of breath as he opened the message from my lawyer, the one detailing every transaction he'd made with our joint funds over the past year, every hotel booking, every gift to Jessica. And most importantly, the legal documentation showing that I'd secured an injunction preventing any sale of our house without explicit court approval. You can't do this, he sputtered. I already have. Oh, and Mark, Jessica called me this morning. The silence on the other end was deafening. She was quite surprised to learn you're still married. Apparently, you told her we've been divorced for 2 years, and that's why you couldn't introduce her to any of your friends or family. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, when Mark realized just how thoroughly I'd dismantled his plans. What he didn't know was that I'd met with Jessica myself 2 days ago, showing her proof of Mark's lies and manipulations. She's young, Mark, but she's not stupid, I continued. When I showed her the records of how you've been spending our retirement savings on her, she was horrified. Did you really think she'd want to be part of destroying someone's life? The sound of something shattering came through the phone. Mark's legendary temper making an appearance. You've ruined everything, he shouted. No, you did that yourself. I just made sure I wouldn't go down with you. After hanging up, I walked through our house. My house now, touching the walls, the furniture, all the pieces of our life together that Mark had been willing to sacrifice for his midlife fantasy. Lauren came over that afternoon, bringing wine and sympathy. How are you holding up? I poured us each a glass, settling into my favorite window seat. Better than I expected. You know what the funny thing is? A year ago, this would have destroyed me. What changed? I thought about it, remembering the moment I found that Cartier receipt. I realized I was worth more than what Mark thought of me. The moment I stopped trying to save our marriage and started protecting myself, everything became clearer. My phone buzzed. An email from Sarah with an update on the divorce proceedings. Mark's attempts to hide assets had backfired spectacularly, triggering a forensic audit of all his accounts. The judge was not amused by his financial manipulations. Ms. Walker, Sarah wrote, given the evidence of financial misconduct, we're in a strong position to secure not just the house, but a significant portion of all marital assets. Would you like to proceed? I typed back a simple yes. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and revelations. Mark's carefully constructed world unraveled piece by piece. His company launched an investigation into his expense accounts, finding years of questionable charges. Jessica, hurt and angry at his deception, provided her own evidence of his lies. Through it all, I maintained my design business, even landing a major contract to renovate a historic hotel. The client had specifically requested me after seeing our house featured in a design magazine. The same house Mark had tried to sell behind my back. One evening, as I reviewed renovation plans in my home office, the doorbell rang. It was Mark, looking disheveled and defeated. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice rough. I let him in, noticing how he took in the changes I'd made to the house. The new art on the walls, the rearranged furniture, all traces of his presence erased. "I messed up, Becky," he said, sinking into a chair. "Jessica's gone, the company suspended me pending their investigation, and my lawyer says I'll be lucky if I don't face criminal charges for the financial stuff." "What did you expect, Mark? That you could steal our future and I just accept it?" He ran his hands through his graying hair. I don't know what I thought, that I deserved more, that you'd be lost without me." I laughed, genuinely amused. "That was always your problem. You saw me as an accessory to your life, not a partner. You never understood that I was building my own success while you were busy destroying yours." The final divorce settlement came through 3 months later. I kept the house, my business, and most of our assets. Mark's financial misconduct had cost him dearly, both in the settlement and in his career. Jessica, to her credit, had turned her life around. She'd returned the bracelet and other gifts, using the money to start her own yoga studio. She even hired me to design the space. "I'm sorry," she'd said during our first design meeting. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I really thought he was divorced." "We both learned some hard lessons," I replied. "The important thing is what we do afterward." A year after that night in the kitchen when I'd received the real estate agent's email, I stood in my garden, hosting a celebration. My design business had expanded, adding 3 new designers and a commercial division. The historic hotel renovation had won awards, leading to more high-profile projects. Lauren raised her glass in a toast to new beginnings. As my friends and colleagues cheered, I looked around at the home I'd fought to keep, the business I'd built, and the life I'd reclaimed. My phone buzzed, a text from Mark's sister. "He's living in a small apartment now, working an entry-level job. Keeps saying he should have appreciated what he had." I didn't respond. Mark's regrets weren't my concern anymore. Instead, I turned to my guests, raising my own glass. "To knowing your worth," I said, "and never letting anyone make you forget it." Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat in my garden, listening to the fountain I'd installed where Mark's prized grill used to be. The stars were bright above, the air fragrant with jasmine I planted last spring. My phone lit up with an email. Another client requesting a consultation. Life moved forward, bringing new opportunities, new challenges, new chances to prove what I was capable of. Mark had thought selling our house would fund his new life. Instead, his betrayal had freed me to create something better than I'd ever imagined. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed makes room for everything you deserve. I touched the warm stones of the house, my house, feeling the strength of its foundation beneath my fingers. Like me, it had weathered storms and emerged stronger. Every room told a story now, not of what was lost, but of what was gained when I finally stood up for myself. The next morning, I had 3 client meetings, 2 project reviews, and a consultation with a potential investor interested in expanding my business nationally. Mark's attempts to diminish me had only proven how much I could accomplish on my own. As I got ready for my day, I caught my reflection in the mirror. A woman who had turned betrayal into triumph, pain into power. The house he tried to sell had become the symbol of my independence, and the life he tried to destroy had transformed into something far greater than his limited vision could have imagined. After all, the best revenge isn't just success. It's succeeding in ways your betrayer never thought possible.